Okay, so taking a look at this first system here. First thing we have to do, of course, is decide what method we're going to use to solve it. Bless you. Now, because we've discussed that graphing is very imprecise, I'm going to rule that option out right away. So for this first system here, would you use substitution or the elimination method? The elimination method, okay. Now, first of all, what'd you get for an answer? 2 negative 3. Okay, well, let's take a look. If we're going to do elimination here, we have to get rid of one of the variables. We have to think of least common multiples, kind of like least common denominators. For the x, we have 5 and 3. That least common multiple would be 15. That's doable. That's not terrible. For y, we have negative 3 and 2. That would end up being a least common multiple of 6. So which one do we want to get rid of, the x or the y? The x? Okay. Now, I will say this. There is one slight advantage to getting rid of the y here. Can anybody tell me what it is? There's already one that's negative. But we can get rid of x. It doesn't matter. So we're going to multiply this top one by 3 and the bottom one by 5. But I'm going to have to modify that slightly. Can anybody tell me why? Yeah, they're both positive right now. We have to make one negative. So I'm going to make this a negative 5 down here. So on top, we have 3 times 5x makes 15x. 3 times negative 3 is negative 9y equals 3 times 19 is 57. Any questions so far? Put the phones down, guys. So then here, we've got negative 5 times 3x makes negative 15x. Negative 5 times 2y, negative 10y, equals negative 5 times 0, 0. So now we're going to add the 15x and negative 15x do cancel out. Negative 9 and negative 10y make negative 19y. 57 and 0 is just 57. And then divide by negative 19, y equals a negative 3. And now we have to go back up to one of these equations. I'm going to do this second one here and replace y with negative 3. So this is 3x minus 6, or plus a negative 6, equals 0. So we're going to add 6. You get 3x equals 6. And then divide by 3 to get x equals 2. So this is 2 negative 3. Questions? How many of you feel relatively comfortable doing that? Okay. Kind of comfortable? Okay. So, the next one here, what method would you want to use? We could use elimination, or this would actually be one that wouldn't be hard to do substitution because it's just y in both equations. In fact, I would probably use substitution. This is one of the few times I favor the elimination method as much as possible. This is one I probably would use substitution. Just to give you a little bit of variety, let's do it by substitution. This top equation here, I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides to give us that y equals 5 minus 2x. Now I'm going to replace the y in this equation with 5 minus 2x. So I have negative 3x plus, instead of y, it's going to be y. It's going to be replaced with 5 minus 2x. I could put it in parentheses, but there's no coefficient there, so it really doesn't matter. So I really don't need the parentheses there because there's nothing that needs to be done to that expression there. Keep your hands to yourselves, guys.
That would have been at that table at that point. What is this?
Negative 3x plus negative 2x makes negative 5x. Plus 5 equals 10. And then subtract 5. Negative 5x equals 5, and yes, you divide by 5, or negative 5. X equals negative 1. So up here we put in negative 1 for x. So y equals 5. Negative 2 times negative 1 is a positive 2, so y is 7. So we have negative 1 comma 7. How many had that for that one? Cool. Good deal. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to look at some applications for these. Where is it that you guys are going to use it in your industry? So one of the applications we're going to look at is this. We're going to look at a 1612 sloped roof coming into a 412 sloped roof. So we've got a dual sloped roof here. And this is going to be 40-foot span. I want to know what's that height got to be, what's the run of the 1612, and what's the run of the 412. What's that? Well, combined, yeah. In fact, that's where we're going to start. We know, that's one thing that we know, is we know that x plus y equals 40 feet. There's a first relationship. That's actually going to be one of our equations that we use. What else do we know about x and y? Well, we don't think they're equal. We're not totally sure, but they're probably not. You're right. What we can do is we can look at each triangle here. In this triangle, I have h here and x here. Do I know anything about the relationship between x and h? You could x squared plus h squared to give you the length of this, but we're not necessarily looking for that. It is 4 times the slope, yes, not necessarily pitch, but slope. But we do have the slope. Drew is heading in the right direction there. We do have the slope. We know it's a 16 rise for a 12 run. So we know that 16 over 12 equals, which one's going to go on top here, the h or the x? H, right? H is the rise, 16 is the rise. So the h goes with the 16, so x goes on bottom. Now we're going to cross multiply. When we have a proportion like this, the cross products have to be equal. Now we did percents where we cross multiplied and divided. This is just the full method of doing that. So 16x has to equal h times 12, or 12h. How does that help us? Oh, it helps us more than you think. If I divide by 16, it tells me 12 over 16 is 3/4, right? That 3/4 of h equals x, or x is equal to 3/4 of h. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is, no, not necessarily. I'm going to replace x here with 3/4 h. Now I'm going to do the same thing for y. I have my height here and I have y, and I know that relationship is a 412 slope. So I have that 4 over 12 equals h over y. So I cross multiply 4y has to equal 12h. I divide by 4, 3h equals y. So I'm going to come up here and replace y with 3h. So 3/4 h plus 3h equals 40. So 3/4 plus 3 is 3 3/4 h equals 40. So now I have to take 40 divided by 3 3/4, which is going to give us what? It is 10 and 2/3. So h equals 10 and 2/3 feet. Or 10 foot 8. Now we're assuming we didn't have any heel height there at all either. We'll get to some examples of those later on. But now we still need x and y. We can come up here. H is 2/3 of a foot is how many inches? 8. So 10 foot 8. X from over here is 3/4 of h. So x equals 3/4 times 10 and 2/3, which is 8. Correct? Times 3/4, 8. X equals 8. Now I also know from over here that y equals 3h. So y equals 3 times 10 and 2/3, which is 32, right? Or we could have just said 40 minus 8. That's a very good question. Could I just take 40 minus 8? You're right, I could. But the reason I did it this way is now I have a way to double check. Because now I can say, okay, 8 and 32 do add up to 40, so it makes sense. What do you think of those? Not horrible? Kind of horrible? Just a little bit horrible? It is a little bit of work. You're right. Let's talk about a porch roof. Let's make this one a 10-12. And this down here, we'll go a 5-12. We're going to make this 12 feet. This whole span here, what works out well? I think 30 feet will work. Here's what I need to know. I want to know x and y. The span of the 5-12 on this side, or the run of the 5-12 and the run of the 10-12 on this side. So how am I going to find that? Well, here I have to break some things down. What do I know about x and y, first of all? I know that x plus y adds up to what? 18. 30 minus 12 is 18. So x plus y has to be 18. Now up here, the triangles are a little bit different. I'm going to draw in these two triangles, and I'm going to call this A and this B. B just goes from here to here. And if I'm still thinking of this whole height as h, I know that h is equal to a plus b, correct? Do I know how big h is? Yeah, it's 10 feet. How do I know that? Because it's a 10-12 slope equals h over a run of 12. I cross multiply and divide. H has to be 10. Everybody see where the 10 came from for h? Any questions on where that came from? So I know that a plus b has to be 10 feet. But a plus b are different variables than x and y, aren't they? I need those to be in terms of x and y. So let's look at a up here. That triangle is a and y, and what slope is it? 5-12. So 5 over 12 equals a over y. Good. So now we've got 5 times y is 5y. A times 12 is 12a. So I'm going to divide by 12 to get that A equals 5/12 y. So I can replace A with 5/12 y. Now I need to do the same for B and X. I have B and I have X. What slope goes with that? 10/12. So I have 10 over 12 equals B over X. And I will cross multiply. 10 times X is 10X, and that has to equal B times 12, which is 12B. I divide by 12 to get that B equals 10/12 X, or 5/6 X. So I can come up here and I'm gonna rearrange this a little bit. I'm gonna put B first, which is I'm gonna put down 10/12 X, plus A, which is 5/12 Y, equals 10. The reason I left that in twelfths is I'm going to simplify this equation just a little bit. I'm going to multiply the whole thing by 12 to get rid of the fractions. So I have 10x plus 5y equals 120. I'm now going to multiply this equation by -5. Why am I doing that? So the y becomes a -5y, so we'll cancel with the 5y. So 5 times x, or -5 times x is a -5x. -5 times y is a -5y equals -5 times 18 is a -90. 10x plus -5 is 5x. 5y and -5y cancel out. 120 and -90 makes 30, and we divide by 5. X equals 6. So this is 6 feet, and y then would be 12 feet. What do you think? Good stuff? No? Okay, so we're going to take a look at this one now. Where this side over here is a 15/12 slope. And this side over here is a 5/12 slope. This is going to be now 42 feet total. This heel height over here is 15 inches. This heel height over here is 10 inches. We once again want to know what's H, what's X, and what's Y. Measure it?
Yes, you gotta be taking the measurement.
What if you're trying to build the truss on your own on the job site? So you got to figure it out. You're not smart enough to do that? So, once again, of course, gentlemen, you know that X plus Y is what? 42. Now we're going to use that height again, and we're going to define that height from each direction, but I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to draw in a triangle right here. And in that triangle, this is X, but this here is not H, is it? That is H minus 15 inches. So I'm going to put 15 over 12. That should be inches, yes. A 15-foot heel height would be nasty. Yeah. So 15 feet and 10 feet. There we go. Or 15 inches and 10 inches heel height. So that's 15/12 to make that inches. And that is going to relate to a 15, 12 slope. So 15 over 12 equals h minus 15 twelfths over x. So I've got 15 times x is 15x. 12 times h minus 15 twelfths. I'm going to write it like that, and then yes, you are correct. 12 times h is 12h. 12 times negative 15 twelfths is just a negative 15. So now I can replace this x if I can solve this for x by dividing by 15. 12 divided by 15 is 0.8. That's it. 12 fifteenths is true. 0.8h minus 1 equals x. So I'm going to replace x here with 0.8h minus 1. Now you could have done 4/5 h if you'd rather stick with fractions. This group doesn't seem to be horribly fond of fractions, so I did the decimal version. Now up here we're going to do the same thing for y. So this is y, and this is h minus 10 inches, so 10 twelfths. And of course, this is on a 5/12 slope. Correct? Yes. So we have 5 over 12 equals h minus 10 twelfths over y. 5 times y is 5y. And over here we have 12 times h minus 10 twelfths. And yes, once again, 12 times h is 12h. 12 times negative 10 twelfths is a negative 10 equals 5y. And we're going to divide by the 5. (12h) divided by 5 is 2.4h. Negative 10 divided by 5 is negative 2. So y equals 2.4h minus 2. So I'm going to replace this y with a positive 2.4h minus 2 equals 42. So now we have 0.8h and 2.4h makes 3.2h. Negative 1 and negative 2 make negative 3 minus 3 equals 42. What do we do from there? We add 3. 3.2h equals 45, and then divide by 3.2. Which gives us that h equals what? (14 and 1/16), right? Technically, that's exactly 3/4 of an inch, by the way, 1/16 of a foot. Just so you know. 14 feet, 3/4 of an inch. Or 14 and 1/16 of a foot. Now we still need to find x and y. We know x is 0.8h minus 1. So 0.8 times 14.0625 minus 1, which is going to give us what? Times 0.8 minus 1. 10.25 equals x. So x is 10.25 feet, otherwise known as 10 foot 3 inches. Y is 2.4 times h. So 2.4 times 14.0625 minus 2. 2.4 times 14.0625 minus 2. 31.75. Or 31 feet 9 inches. And of course that better add up to 42 feet, and it does. See? How do you like that one? Really good? Loads of fun? That's it. We're done. We got X and Y. Yeah, don't worry. There's more. Plenty coming. You okay there? Wow. So we've got a 12-12 on one side, a 3-12 on the other, and we've got a 40-foot span. We have a 24-inch heel on this side, and we have a 9-inch heel on this side. In your notes, you guys need to find for me H, X, and Y. Okay, so we have here that X plus Y equals 40, correct? That's where we're going to start out at. On this side, we have a triangle right here. This is X, and this is H minus 24 over 12, which reduces to 2, right? So it's 24 here, right? Because H is the whole height, right? And we're subtracting 24 inches. This is 24 over 12, or 2 feet. Then, of course, the slope is 12-12. So we've got 12 over 12 equals H minus 2 over X. 12 times X equals 12 times H minus 2. Now, rather than multiplying the 12 through there, I'm going to take a little shortcut. I'm going to divide the 12. So just get H minus 2 equals X. Otherwise, I could have multiplied and got 12X minus 24 and then divided by 12 to get H minus 2 equals X. So I just took a shortcut there. So X here equals H minus 2. Now on the other side, I have this triangle here. This is Y. This piece is H minus 9/12, 9 inches. So X, or Y, sorry, Y and H minus 9/12. And this is 3/12 slope. So I have 3 over 12 equals, now H minus 9/12, 9/12 is 3/4. So I'm going to do H minus 3/4 over Y. 3 times Y is 3Y. 12 times H minus 3/4. Now I am going to multiply through the 12, so I have 12H minus 12 times 3/4 is 9 equals 3Y. And I'll divide by 3. 12H divided by 3 is 4H. Negative 9 divided by 3 is a negative 3. So Y equals 4H minus 3. So I replace Y with a positive 4H minus 3. So now we have H and 4H is 5H. Negative 2 and negative 3 is negative 5 equals 40. What do we do from there? Add 5. 5H equals 45. And then divide by 5. H equals 9. So we now know that H is 9 feet. X over here is H minus 2, so 9 minus 2 is 7 for X. That's 7 feet. Y, of course, 40 minus 7 better be 33 feet. But we'll double check down here. 4 times 9 minus 3. 4 times 9 is 36. Minus 3 is 33 feet. So Y is 33 feet. Did anybody have all 3 of those pieces correct? A couple of you. Cool. So let's say we have one here that is a 12-12 slope here. 12-12 slope there. And 3-12 slope here. There's our height. And I'm going to list the height here as 10 feet. I'm going to list the total span here as, what am I going to do here? $38 feet. Is that going to work? I think that'll work. So what you need to find, once again, find X and Y. And of course you need to find Z here too, but Z is going to be easy to find. What do you think? Probably not going to be able to do it? Well, I will give you a hint. Z, this is 10, this is Z, that's a 12-12 slope. Can anybody tell me what Z has to be? That better be 10 feet. Because 12 over 12 equals 10 over Z. If you cross multiply and divide, Z is 10. So once you know that Z is 10 feet, that leaves us with from here to here being 28 feet. So you start out with X plus Y equals 28. We're going to take our break, and when we come back from break, you guys are going to finish this. Well, let's take a look and see what we come up with. We know that X plus Y equals 28. We have that equation right there. So now we're going to look at this right here and this right here. I'm going to call this A and this B. We know that A plus B has to equal what? 10. So now I have to turn, how? Because the height is 10. Okay, so now we have to turn A and B into X and Y. Well, we know that A and X, this triangle here, this is A and this is X, and it's what slope? 12-12. Now I'm going to finish this off, but you guys can all see where this is going. A equals X, right? 12X equals 12A. A equals X. So A equals X. So now we have B and Y here, and the 3-12 slope. So 3 over 12 equals B over Y. 3 times Y is 3Y. 12 times B is 12B. We will divide by 12 to get B equals 1/4 Y. So A plus B equals 10 becomes X plus 1/4 Y equals 10. I'm going to multiply this equation by a -1 to give me negative X plus negative y equals negative 28. And I'm going to add. X and negative x cancel out. 1/4 y and negative 1y is a negative 3/4 y. 10 and negative 28 is a negative 18. Everybody, any questions so far? We divide by negative 3/4. Get that y equals 24. So y is 24 and x is 4. Good job, guys. Where did I lose you, Mike? Yeah, the negative x minus y equals negative 20. That was just this first equation, x plus y equals 28. I multiplied it by negative 1, so that had positive x and negative x. So then once I had that, all I did is I took this equation and I rewrote it down here after multiplying it by negative 1, so they'd cancel out the x's. So then 1/4 and negative 1 made the negative 3/4 y. 10 and negative 28 make negative 18. So I divided it out to get that y is 24. How many of you think you might have a shot at doing those on your own?
No.
Maybe one or two of you? Yeah, they're not that terrible. You've just got to take your time and be patient. You've got to pick it apart. The slopes?
Well, yeah. Divided by 12 is divided by 3.
Sure.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just a matter of taking those slopes, writing down what you know, and seeing if you can replace variables with other variables till you got an equation you can solve. The good news is we are now totally done with Unit 3. That means I am going to pass out a test right now, which means
what?
there is no homework.
No, that doesn't make any sense.
You will have the next half hour, actually 35 minutes to work on the test. If you guys work hard for 35 minutes, I will let you take it home to finish.
Okay. Ah!
The tests were not allowed to use the notes for, correct?
You can use your notes and your books on the test.
Okay.